Okay, cool. Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for hopping on tonight. If we get a few stragglers, it's all good. We're recording for the folks that can't make us so they can still enjoy this. I won't talk too much. Kristen, if you want to give a quick little intro, go ahead and do that, and then we can get right into it. But Kristen's part of our group. She's part of the stage 1 team, so she's involved a lot with their rides, races, more of that off-road scene. So Kristen, if you want to tell us a bit about your background, and then we can get into yoga.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen. I've been teaching yoga for about 10 years, mainly as a hobby, but right now I do have a job where I'm teaching yoga at a psychiatric hospital, only until tomorrow, and then I'm actually starting a new job. um, so I just love to share yoga with people, and it's been really helpful for me in many ways of my life, physically and emotionally and mentally. And so the type of yoga we're doing tonight is it's called Yin Yoga, where we're going to be holding postures for a little bit longer. It's like a kind of a deep stretching. So as cyclists, we're probably used to thinking about power and speed and endurance. And that's all good. But if you're just doing that, it neglects focusing on your mobility, flexibility, and um, yeah. And so yoga is helpful in that it really improves flexibility. It can increase strength depending on what kind you're doing. And it also really helps you develop your breathing, which is really important. Um, so, so tonight we're going to do this yin yoga. I'll talk you through it. It might be a little bit different if you haven't done it before. It's pretty passive. We're going to be laying down a lot, doing some deep stretching. It's not going to be really movement based. So it might, if that's what you're familiar with, it might be a little uncomfortable, but just something to invite and be aware of and let it be a new experience. Um, and obviously you can do whatever you want to do. I don't need to see you at all, but if you want to leave your cameras on, that's great. I only say that because that's something I do when I'm a student and I take an online class because I feel like it gives me some more accountability. Otherwise, I'm tempted to check my phone and that kind of thing. So you do you, but if that's like a helpful structure. And what we're doing tonight is really simple. It's something you can do anytime on your own, but just having the class, I think, provides the structure that you might not otherwise hold yourself accountable to. So, we're not doing anything mind blowing here, but at least we're having a container for everybody to make this space. So, like I said, have a block or a couple of books if you have it. Hopefully you're wearing something comfortable. You can take your shoes off. Feel free to dim the lighting where you are. We're not gonna, you're not gonna be able to need to see too much too. So sometimes that's kind of soothing to your nervous system if you don't have an overhead light on. And yeah, we'll go from here. So when you're ready, I'll probably be on and off my mat a bit. Hopefully I can be clear enough with my verbal cues that you won't need to be looking at me much. So you're going to start on your belly actually tonight. So coming onto your belly, laying down onto your mat, and stretching your legs out. And of course, I really can't see anyone, so I'm just going to assume that you're doing what I'm saying, and that's perfectly fine. You can make a little pillow with your hands, stacking one palm on top of the other. And then just take a few deep breaths. Let this be an opportunity to transition from your day, from whatever you were doing 5 minutes ago, just honoring this transition from sort of the mundane things that we need to do every day into this different place. Hopefully mentally we'll get in a little bit of different place where you start to minimize the distractions around you, hopefully. And you start to come inward a little bit. So during this practice, feel free to close your eyes whenever you want. That's really helpful for me to stay in my body and stay in the moment. And as you breathe, just let your body be heavy, noticing for any places you might be holding tension or tightness. It's helpful to scan your face and just notice if you're holding any tension in your jaw. You may tend to clench your teeth unconsciously, so separate your teeth. Relax your eyes, the inner corners of the eyes and the outer corners of the eyes. And just imagine smoothing out your forehead. Letting the earth hold and support the weight of your body. And then start to notice your breath. One helpful thing about starting lying down is that you can really feel, you can get some information, some feedback about your breath, because as you inhale, you can feel your belly expand and press into the floor. And as you exhale, you feel your belly retract a little bit as the belly button comes back towards the spine. And so for me, I find that helpful. I mean, of course, we know that we're breathing all day. You know, lucky for us, we don't have to think about it consciously. You know, and sometimes when you're in a yoga class and the teacher invites you to notice your breath, it can seem a little like not tangible. But using the floor to give you some feedback, to really feel your belly expand, and maybe you're feeling it in other places too. Maybe you feel your ribs expand and your lungs. And maybe it's soothing. And then start to just kind of feel your breath expanding beyond the confines of your lungs, filling up the back of your lungs, your back of your body. This three-dimensional breath. Smooth inhale and smooth exhale. If you're familiar with any breathing techniques, one of them is Ujjayi breathing, where you make a little constriction in the back of your throat as if you're hugging your vocal cords, or as if you're whispering with your mouth closed on the inhale and the exhale. That can also be soothing as well. And then as thoughts come in, which you're going to do many times during class, and I will remind you over and over to bring your attention back to your breath so that you can stay present. But as the thoughts do come into your mind, just notice them, observe them, acknowledge them, and then let them pass through, not to indulge them. There's time for that later. And from here, we'll get right into the first pose that we're going to come into, which is Sphinx pose. So you're going to bring your elbows onto the floor, out in front of you. Your elbows are going to be beneath your shoulders. And you're making like a 90-degree angle with your arms. So my elbow is stacked under my shoulder. The crease of my elbow is lined up more or less with the crease of my wrist. I'm spreading my fingers wide. If you feel like there's a bit of pain or tenderness in the low back, you might be able to make a little bit more room in the sacrum by just tucking the toes under 1 foot at a time and drawing the hip point back a little bit and then settling back in. And then the top of the feet are pressing down into the mat. Shoulders are drawing away from the ears. You're looking forward. And then you start to pull your elbows back. You're not going to actually move them, but you're creating some traction as if you were trying to pull yourself towards the other side of the room, but you're not actually moving. So creating that traction for the low back. Pressing down firmly. And so this would be a place where if you wanted to use a block, you could place a block underneath your head here. Or if you have your books, you could place a block there and rest your forehead. And so this is Sphinx pose, and it's a great counter stretch for sitting and biking. It's a counter stretch to the forward flexion that we normally have if you're rounded over your handlebars. And just for everyday life, you have a desk job or you're in your car, it's like retraining the muscles and the ligaments on your back. So in Yin Yoga, you come into a pose, you find sensation, feeling. On a scale of 1 to 10, you're looking for about a 3 to a 5. So it's not like going to your edge where you're like going to your max. Kind of finding that middle point, that sweet spot where you're feeling something. You know it's working, you're doing something, but you feel like you could hold it for a number of minutes. And that's the key to Yin Yoga, and that's what makes it really challenging, particularly mentally challenging, is the discipline to just stay right where you are without, quote unquote, doing anything. That can be just like an uncomfortable place for people, especially if you are used to just kind of going. Especially for, I think, athletes in general, probably. Sometimes it feels like if you're not sweating or, getting your heart rate up, then it feels like it's not productive. And that's definitely not the case. If at any time you need to come down, please do. I promise we won't stay here forever. We'll be here for just maybe about 30 more seconds or so. But anytime you need to come out of a pose, honoring that. With your eyes closed, if you'd like, you can feel your belly expand and contract. And maybe with your breath, you feel into some places that you might not otherwise notice, or maybe you feel the sensation a little bit more deeply. Try to do your best to kind of relax into this pose, even pushing yourself away from gravity. So it definitely takes some effort. It's one of the less passive poses in Yin Yoga because you're moving against gravity, but see where you can try to soften and relax. And then when you're ready, very slowly. So sometimes the coming out of the pose in Yin is kind of the most intense part. Might feel sort of fragile. So I'm just going to lower my head down. I'm going to make a pillow with my hands. And I'm going to rest my head down there. And just pause for a moment and notice. And then if you'd like, you can bend your knees and windshield wiper your legs side to side. Just giving yourself a little release of your low back. And then you'll turn your head to the right side. Bring your right arm out to the side, like perpendicular with your body. So head to the right, right arm out, straight to the side, like a T shape. Palm flipped up, rotating on the thumb side of your hand. So not the pinky side. It's kind of hard to rotate that side. So rolling over onto your thumb. And then bringing your left hand in front of your face as you start to push into your left hand and roll over onto your right side. So coming into a shoulder opener. So my right arm is straight behind me, again, perpendicular with my body. My left hand is on the floor, supporting me. If it's too much on the shoulder, if you have some sort of, if you're working with an injury or, past injury, you can always bring your right hand a lot closer to your body, just minimizing that angle. You could also bring your left hand under the right side of your head like a little pillow, if you'd like. And then your decision, you can either bend the knees, stacking one leg on top of the other, or you could straighten the right leg and bring the left leg in front of the right with the knee bent. That gives you a little bit more leverage to roll over onto your right side, kind of just to push your body a little bit more onto the right side. It's not necessary. Or you could bring that left foot to the back of your right leg. So a few different options here. We won't hold this one for quite as long because can be a pretty intense pose on the shoulder. We don't have a lot of time tonight, so I'm just kind of giving you almost like a sampler. Typically in Yin, you would hold this pose from anywhere to like 3 to 5 or 10 minutes, really depending on the pose. So think of this as kind of like Yin light or introduction to Yin. Soften your jaw, soften your face, soften your eyes. And then slowly roll back over onto your belly. You may want to shift your hips, your belly a little bit more to the center of the mat. And roll over a little bit more to the right, actually, a little bit off center as you reach the left arm out now. Flipping the palm up, rotating on the thumb side. Your left side of your face comes onto the mat. Your right hand is in front of your left face with the elbow bent. And then you slowly start to roll over onto the left side. Also with the right hand, you could also bring it behind your back if you're inclined. That's an option too. And then again with the knees stacked or one foot in the front or bringing that foot to the back to create a little bit more leverage to roll over onto that side. So I purposely didn't use any music tonight. I normally probably would in a class, just like some instrumental music or something. So that's something that you could always add. I didn't do it just so that my voice would be clear, you could understand me. You can also do this and listen to something, listen to a podcast or something, just kind of to pass the time if that's, what you feel like would be helpful to you. I mean, the mind part of it, that just kind of being and not doing and kind of just observing the mechanisms of the mind is part of also the point of Yin, but people do yoga for all sorts of reasons. And if the physical part of it is really what's most important to you and drawing you towards it, then you should, accommodate for it to suit you so that you'll want to do it. And then you can start to roll over again onto your belly. Roll over onto your belly, and then bring your hands underneath your shoulders with your elbows tucked in. You can bring your forehead down on the floor. Press into the top of your feet, and as you inhale, just come up into like a little baby cobra. Lifting the chest, looking forward, gaze is down, so there's no strain on your neck. Take a breath here, inhale, and exhale as you lower. We'll come up like that one more time. So inhaling as you come up, drawing the shoulders back, pulling the elbows in, and exhale as you release. Forehead down. And then tuck your toes under, push into your hands, come onto your hands and your knees, hands and knees. So you're in a tabletop position, hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips, your fingers are spread wide. You're drawing your shoulders back away from your ears. You're pulling your belly button towards your spine to connect with your abdominal muscles for support. And then we'll take a few cat-cows here. So just arching and rounding the spine. So as you inhale, you can drop your belly, draw your heart forward, getting wide across your collarbones, imagining squeezing your spine with your shoulder blades. And as you exhale, push the earth away, round your spine, bring your chin to your chest, and hollow out your belly. Do this as you keep pressing down into your feet, inhaling, drop belly, draw heart forward, exhaling and round. Just continue like this a few times, moving with your breath. It doesn't matter which way you inhale or exhale, you can reverse it. And sometimes I do that consciously just to mix things up a little bit. It's always good to get out of our habitual habits. And it just feels different. When you switch up your breathing, the pose literally feels different. And after you've taken a few rounds of this, we'll bring the big toes together. You can always bring your knees in closer if that's better on your groin or your inner thighs. But if it feels okay to bring the knees out a bit wider and bring the big toes together, press your hips back towards your heels and then send your fingertips forward. Your forehead can come down onto the mat, or if it doesn't reach comfortably, place a block or a book or a pillow underneath your head to bring the earth up a little bit closer to you. So this is extended child pose. It's active. My fingers are reaching forward. My elbows are lifted. You could even come onto your fingertips so that you're lifting your palms away from the earth and the wrists away from the earth. And then take a few breaths here, really pressing your sitting bones back, reaching your tailbone away, lengthening through your spine. And go back to your face, just like we scanned the face at the beginning of class. Notice if there's any places where you're creating tension or tightness in the face. So relax your jaw, relax your eyes. And then walk your hands over to the right side of your mat, maybe even coming off of your mat for a side stretch into your left side. So big stretch here. This is a great way to lengthen the side of your body, which can become sort of collapsed or shortened, I should say, by when you're on the bike. So reach your sitting bones away and really reach the left fingertips away, really creating this long line from the fingertips to the wrist, the elbow, the armpit, and then all the way into your side body. Deep breath in and deep breath out. Walk the hands back to the center of the mat and then go to the other side. Walk hands to the left, reach the right fingertips to meet the left. Again, if at any time it feels too intense, you can press your elbows down. If it's too intense in the shoulders, you can bring the knees together. If it's too intense in the inner thigh or groin. Big breath here. And let it settle. Walk your hands back to the center. We'll just bring the arms behind us now. You can bring your knees a little bit closer if you'd like. This is called embryo pose, so a bit more gentle than child's pose. Instead of having your arms by your side, you can make a pillow again with your palms, and rest your forehead on there if you'd like. And then from here, you'll start to make your way up. So coming up onto your hands. And then shifting the weight forward into your hands. You're on hands and knees. You're going to tuck your toes underneath. So see if you can get all 10 toes tucked under. Sometimes you have to manually do a couple of the toes. And then you can either keep your hands on the floor and stretch the bottom of your foot this way for toe squat. That might be plenty for you. And if that is, just stay right here. If it's too much here, you can lift the hips up off of the heels and be like more in a tabletop. If you're back with hips on heels and you feel like you can go a little bit deeper, then you could start to walk your hands closer to you, and then eventually bringing your hands to rest on your thighs. So this is toe squat. So number of variations you can take, or intensity levels. So again, less intense on all fours with the weight shifted forward, more intense with the hips shifted back, and most intense with the torso stacked over the pelvis. And you just see, close your eyes maybe. Keep bringing your attention back to the breath. It's like, how calm can you be in a state of, I hope this isn't suffering for anyone, but in a state of being uncomfortable? How can you find some equanimity, some ease in the effort? And then we'll come out of this pose by just shifting the weight forward, untucking the toes, and then sitting the hips back onto the heels. If it's not comfortable for you to kneel, well, one, you don't have to kneel. You could always just sit cross-legged, but if you have a block or books, you could take your block, bring it behind you, and then sit on that. Like your knees are tender, so that's a nice option. We'll just take a simple twist here from seating. So however you're sitting is fine. Bring your arms out by your side. Reach your arms up and overhead. So really reaching through both sides of your waist, drawing your navel towards your spine. And then as you exhale, twist to your right. Your right hand comes behind you. Your left hand comes to the outside of your leg. Looking over your right shoulder. I'm just taking a few breaths here. Again, still bringing the belly towards the spine. And then inhale, reach the right arm up and over, and you can take a little side bend to the left. Great. And then bring that arm behind you again and slowly unwind. Inhale, reach both arms up. Exhale, twist to your left, looking over the left shoulder. Reaching through the crown of the head, sitting up tall. Really feeling that rotation, not just from the head and the neck and the upper body, but really feeling your torso and your abdomen turn and twist to the side as your lower body stays relatively stable. And then inhale, bring your arms up and overhead. We'll come onto our knees if you're on your knees. If you're not, that's okay too. This is just for a moment, reaching the arms up, You could do this just sitting regular, interlacing the hands behind the back, reaching up, widening through the front of your chest, and then slowly making your way down. Bring your hands down onto your mat, tuck your toes, and then lift your knees and send your send your hips up towards the sky, coming into downward facing dog. Just take a few breaths here. Use this opportunity to pedal out your feet, bending and straightening the leg. And then from here, we'll drop the knees. Let's bring the right leg back behind you. Tuck the toes, so stretch out through the back of the right leg. This is good to have some like full extension of the leg. At least when I'm biking, I feel like, I don't know if my seat is just too low, but it's just how I'm comfortable. But my leg does not like fully extend. So I'm not getting that full extension of my legs. So this is a nice way to get full capacity of the leg. And then we'll switch sides to the other side. Tuck the left toes under, press out through the knee. Keeping the gaze kind of a little bit forward and down, drawing the shoulders back away from the ears. And then lowering the left knee down. So bringing your hands underneath your shoulders again, knees under the hips, just like we did before. We're going to come into puppy pose. So taking a look at where your hands are, that's where you're going to place your elbows. So I'm going to bring my elbow down where my left hand is and my right elbow down where my right hand was. And then I'm keeping my hips up high, like stacked over my knees as best I can. If this is too much, so my arms are parallel to each other at about shoulder width. If that's too much on your shoulders, which it very well might be, you definitely can bring your elbows out wider. So bringing the hands closer together, elbows out wider. That will take some pressure off of the shoulders. So that's one modification you can make. Another prop you could use is placing your block underneath your forehead or your book or your pillow. If your neck is stretched too much, if it's not comfortable, coming down to the floor. And then if it's too much of a stretch in your back, this pose is really great because it does like target the mid back, your thoracic spine, which doesn't really have a lot of mobility. I think it's designed that way so it protects your ribs, but to kind of get into that area a little bit, it's helpful. But if it's too much, the arch of the back is too much, then you can bring your hips back closer to your heels, like you're doing more of a child's pose, and you can kind of determine how far back you want or need to go. So full expression of the pose, hips stacked over knees, shoulders stacked over elbows, wrists lined up with elbows. But then, taking any modifications that work better for you, bringing the elbows up wider, shifting the knees or the hips back. I should have said too before we came into it, I'm sorry I didn't, is that if you have, this is a nice place to use a blanket and under the knees, and normally I would do that. I didn't think about that going into this. So if you had a little cushion, or you could fold your mat up and then place your knees on it. So that's a nice way to pad the knees a little bit. And take a few breaths here in your puppy pose. And then we're gonna thread the needle here. So I'm gonna bring my right arm underneath my left arm and then nestle my head back down. Take a few breaths here. Your left arm can be stretched out in front of you with the elbow up, or you can bring your left hand closer to you, or you can bring the left hand back behind the back, palm facing out. Taking a few breaths here. So remember, just coming into the tenets of Yin, or the steps of Yin, is coming into the pose, finding that edge of, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, really about like a 5, so that you're feeling it, but your breath is still nice and fluid. You're not holding your breath, you're not in major discomfort. And then trying to bet your best to relax into the pose, to let the muscles that are not involved in the pose relax a bit. And then to stay in stillness as best as you can. Sometimes that's the hardest part, is staying still. A lot of times there's a tendency to want to fidget or move, or it's just the mind works, and usually it's a more of a mental reaction to what is going on, not so much a physical, not so much a response to like physical pain or discomfort. It's kind of just like, how do you entertain the mind when it's not being entertained by external distraction, external stimulation? Let's go to the other side. So you'll unthread that arm, bring it onto the floor, and then left arm comes underneath. A few breaths here. And then slowly making your way up. If you want to come onto all fours again and take a few rounds of cat-cow, that might be a nice way to just kind of bring your spine back to neutral, so to speak. We'll start to get into the legs a little bit more. So I'm going to tuck my toes. I'm going to start to walk my hands back towards me. And I'm going to start to slowly straighten my legs, bringing my feet about hip width apart. I'm going to start with a generous bend in my knees and just see how that feels. My arms, or your arms, can either be dangling, or you can take a hold of opposite forearms or opposite elbows. Really let the weight of your head drop. So imagine your head is like even heavier than it is. Sometimes I say, like, imagine it's like a bowling ball, like really heavy. So the neck is not needing to work to hold anything up. And then you start with a generous bend in the knees, and you might feel like maybe a stretch in your low back, in your legs too. And then as you take a few cycles of breath in your forward folds, you can slowly start to straighten your legs just a little bit at a time. And it might not even be perceptible to you, or, to me or someone else who is in the room, but you're just kind of pulling the kneecaps a little bit back until you feel that kind of sweet spot, or that edge, that sensation of like a 3 to a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10. So you're feeling into the back of your legs, but you feel like you could hold this for several minutes if needed. And that's the thing with Yin. The more you do it, the more you can find your edge a little bit more like efficiently. And then you can hold the pose for longer. You wouldn't be expected to do a Yin class and hold this pose for 5 or 10 minutes the first time. You also, I'm not even sure blocks are enough for me, but if you had something like a bolster or a couple of blocks and you wanted to rest your forehead there on the block, you could do that as well. If you don't like the sensation of your head just hanging in midair. This is supposed that you would, if you have like unmedicated high blood pressure or any eye disorder, this would be that would be a contraindication in my words. So just something to keep in mind. You could do a forward fold instead of this standing forward fold. You could do a seated forward fold. A lot of the poses in Yin use gravity to do the work. So we're just kind of standing here with our upper body, our torso, falling forward. You are just kind of letting gravity do the work here. Imagine your upper body is like a wet towel, as if you had a towel bar along the crease of your hips. And your upper body is just like a wet, limp towel. Take a few more breaths here. Notice if your toes maybe are clenched here. I notice sometimes that I have the tendency to kind of pull my pads of my toes back and have a crease. See if you can just relax your toes a little bit. Feel the weight maybe shifting a little bit forward and back. You can shift the weight a little bit forward onto the pads of your feet, the ball of the foot, and then shift the weight back into the heels. Maybe a little bit side to side, left foot right, and then just kind of come to the place where you feel equally balanced, front to back, side to side. Just all these little observations to hopefully keep you present, help you keep present. And then, of course, the breath. Our mind does such a good job of dwelling on the past and projecting into the future and worrying about things that might happen, which probably won't happen, but it's not so good at staying in the present. And the breath is a great tool for that, because every in-breath is happening right in this very moment. And then every out-breath, the same. So it brings you squarely right here, right now. You're going to place your hands onto your shins and inhale and come halfway up. You're going to keep your gaze down, so there's no tension in the neck. Moving your shoulders back away from your ears, and then you're going to fold forward. You may want to bend your knees more if that feels better. We'll do that 2 more times. Inhaling, coming halfway up, drawing the shoulders back, bringing the belly button towards the spine. Exhale and fold. And then one last time like that. Inhale halfway up. And exhale and fold. Let's come down, lower the knees. And at this point, we're going to make our way onto our back. So come onto your back, draw your knees into your chest. And bring your chin a little bit towards your chest. So rather than kind of looking back, you're looking a little forward or straight up. Definitely close the eyes if you have that opportunity. And then just maybe sway, rock side to side along, just massaging the muscles along the spine. And then we'll bring the right knee into the chest as you extend the left leg. So right knee into chest, extending the left leg. And take a few breaths here. With every exhalation, kind of feel that like kind of drawing in, condensing in. You might have a little bit more room to draw the leg in, the knee a little bit in and up towards the head. And then we'll take the right foot and bring it to the inside of the left thigh. If you're familiar with tree pose in yoga, it's pretty much like tree pose on your back, a supine tree pose. If the knee is uncomfortable, the right knee is uncomfortable, If you have a pillow or a block, you could slide it underneath your knee for some support here. It is meant to stretch the inside of your thigh, your groin. So if that's what you're, as long as you're not feeling pain or major discomfort, then you might be able to kind of just sit with that a little bit. But of course, if you're feeling more than you think you should or want to feel, slide that block under. Take a few breaths here. And then I would normally hold this a bit longer, but I just want to get to a few more things before we wrap up. So you can extend your right leg, draw the left knee into the chest, press your low back down. And if you want to sway a little bit side to side, or you can even just kind of rotate into the left hip a little bit by making some circles with the knee. And then when you're ready, settle that left foot to the inside of the right thigh, letting the left knee come out to the side. You might feel nice if you have your hands on your abdomen, just feeling the rise and the fall of your own breath, like a wave ebbing and flowing, coming and going, just like your own little melody. And then when you're ready, you can draw the left knee up and then bend the right knee too. So now you've got both knees bent, your feet are flat onto the floor. This is where you'll want your book or your blocks if you have it. And if you don't, that's no problem. You can either use something else or just do this at a different time. I'm gonna press into my feet. I'm gonna lift my hips up off of the floor so that I'm in like a yoga bridge pose. If you're familiar with that. So just slide the block underneath my tailbone. So it's not way up in my low back. It's really just my tailbone is just kind of hovering on it, almost as if I'm almost like falling off of the block. Not quite, but just really at the end of your spine, the end of your tailbone. So this is supported bridge. You could, if you're using a block or a book and it doesn't feel like enough, you could stack another book on top, or you could rotate your block to a different level and then rest your sacrum on it. This might be enough. You can have your arms out to the side, palms flipped down or palms flipped up. And just settle here, creating some opening in the low back. Or you could extend your right leg out and then your left leg out. So the legs are like straight. That can be kind of intense. So you could do one leg straight, one knee bent, or both knees bent. So any variation there. And here too, this is a pose that I would definitely want to hold for a longer time, and it lends itself to that. It's for most people not as strenuous. You're really just like using gravity to create the traction to stretch the spine. But just in the interest of wanting to get to one more thing, we'll press into our feet. If you're on the block, slide the block out from underneath you. Bring it out to the side, and then almost like in slow motion. So try to keep your hips lifted for just a moment. You might feel a little heat in your thighs from this, but and then we'll come down on our exhale, but see if you can come down really, really slowly and coordinate that with your exhalation. So I can do it first and then you can do it. So I'm just going to inhale naturally. And as I exhale, I'm going to slowly roll my spine down like one vertebrae at a time. connecting that with my exhalation, which I'm not doing because I'm talking, but at the end of my exhalation, when I feel like I've breathed all the air out, that's when my tailbone settles down. And then I'm going to draw my knees into my chest. So if you haven't done that yet, go ahead in your slow motion descend. You could rock side to side once you get down there, or you could make circles with your knees, one direction and then the other direction. And then we'll end with a supine pigeon, or thread the needle. This is certainly one that you can do sitting up, but I find that it's more accessible for everyone when you're lying down. So if you're familiar with it, with pigeon pose, and you want to do a different variation, feel free. Just for purposes of this class, I'm going to show it this way. So I'm going to cross my right ankle on top of my left. This might be enough for you, just this, maybe flexing the right foot, engaging there, that might be enough. Or you may want to put a block underneath your left foot, just giving yourself a little bit more sensation, walking the left foot a little bit closer to you. That might add a little something. Or you can take it all the way so that your left foot comes off the floor, you interlace your hands, and you bring them behind the left thigh. So a few variations. A strap would work well here if you don't have the arm length to reach back to grab that thigh. But of course, again, you can use the block, or you can just draw your knees into your chest and not even worry about the arms at all. Flexing the feet will add some engagement, add some stretch to this pose. So you can press up through your heels and draw your toes back if you'd like, or let your toes be relaxed. But just notice kind of one way or the other, just doing it purposefully. Relax your eyes, relax your jaw. And then slowly bring your left foot down onto the floor. Uncross your right leg. You need to stretch out or do anything before you go onto the other side, feel free to do that. Maybe just bringing the arms overhead, stretching the legs, that might feel good. And then other side, so bending the right knee, left ankle crosses over right thigh. Draw the knees into the chest, or again, use your block, or just keep your right foot on the floor. Maybe walking the right foot a little closer to you, that might provide a little bit more stretch. And then take a few breaths. There's so many poses to do in like so little time. So if I did this class again, we could do just like a completely different sequence, targeting this, many of the same areas, but adding some that we didn't get to, maybe like a really good quad stretch. But yeah, typically in a yin sequence, you might only do, I don't know, 5 to 10 poses. Because you're holding them for longer, you're doing both sides. If you want, you can straighten the right leg and just feel into the back of that leg, calf, the hamstring. And then slowly release the right foot down and left foot down. Take a minute now to do anything you need to do before we close. We're going to end with a brief relaxation, shavasana, rest. So if there's a pose that you like to do, or you just want to move or stretch in some way, go ahead and do that. And then when you're ready, arrange yourself so you feel like you could be comfortable for just a few moments. Just be here for about a minute. This is something I would also do longer normally, but just giving your body an opportunity to incorporate what it's just done. Using it as a transition to close out your practice and re-enter the world. Your arms can be by your side or hands placed on belly. Resting your eyes, closing the eyes, bathing your eyes in darkness. Just some opportunity to practice being, not doing. As the mind starts to wander, which it will, just keep bringing your attention back to your breath. Soften your jaw, soften your eyes. And then slowly rebend your knees, bring your feet flat onto the floor. And then shift your body a little bit over to your left side, to the left side of the mat. So shifting a little bit to the left side of the mat so that you can roll over onto your right side and you're still more or less on the mat. And then with your left hand in front of you, you can press into the mat to slowly bring yourself up. Hopefully bringing your head up last. And coming to a comfortable seat. And I like to bring my hands together when I end, not for any really religious or spiritual meaning necessarily, but just kind of a way that more kind of ritualistic, just a way of closing my practice, making it feel complete. And so I just wanted to say to everyone who is still on, thank you so much for taking this journey with me tonight, especially if it's something new for you. And, you know, good for you for doing something good for yourself, and really acknowledging that even though we're not together, I feel like just the energy of everybody being online together and kind of supporting each other, because nobody wants to be the only person here, right? It just almost feels better when there's more people. So thanks for holding space for each other and supporting each other too. I hope you all have a great evening. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank
Welcome.
Thanks everyone
Bye.
for hopping on. Thank you, Kristen, so much.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. Have a great night. Hope you guys sleep well.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.